The biggest news coming out of Russia is that the FSB was tasked with killing Prigozhin after his attempted coup. Clearly, that task wasn't successful. It seems like Prigozhin has some crazy leverage over Putin and the Kremlin because he was just photographed traveling around Russia. All the while, he's supposed to be in exile in Belarus. On top of that, the Wagner mutiny has put even more pressure on the Russian economy, which was already struggling with the high cost of war and international sanctions. Because of the struggling economy, Putin has not been able to properly supply and support his troops in Ukraine. This has led many groups to surrender to Ukraine and just refuse to follow the Kremlin's commands. So in this video, let's go over all of that. But first, be sure to hit that like button below. Your likes play a huge role in helping my videos fight against Russian trolls, who are quick to dislike and downvote any negative news about Russia. This hurts the video's reach and the algorithm, and your likes are the only thing helping the video with the almighty YouTube algorithm gods. Alright, let's start. First and foremost, the Kyiv Independent broke the crazy news that the Russian FSB was tasked with killing Prigozhin by the Russian High Command. The intel comes from Ukraine's military intelligence chief. He goes on to add that, in any case, all of such potential assassination attempts will not be fast. It will take them some time to have the proper approaches and to reach the stage when they're ready to conduct a huge operation. But once again, I'd like to underline that it's a big open question. Would they be successful in fulfilling that? Will they dare to execute that order? During the same interview, he goes on to emphasize that Ukraine intelligence doesn't expect that the Wagner PMC will appear in Ukraine as a separate entity that performs its own operations. As I reported earlier, on June 27th, the FSB claimed it had closed the criminal case over Prigozhin's armed insurrection. Clearly, there was a lot more to the story than the Kremlin is letting on to the public. We still don't know the exact reason and details of the deal with Prigozhin and Putin that was brokered by Lukashenko. One thing we do know for sure is that Prigozhin does not give an F about respecting Putin. According to the deal, he's supposed to be exiled to Belarus, but that doesn't seem to be the case. As reported in many trusted Telegram groups, Prigozhin was back in Russia. And here are some pictures of him on his way to his helicopter. According to some sources, Prigozhin has been given until the 1st of July to close all his affairs in Russia and take his property. This was part of the mutiny agreements. On the 1st, searches and seizures of assets will begin. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he is preparing, in the near future, to take out all available cash of the Wagner PMC and move it to Africa and Belarus. Earlier, I reported that the FSB seized 4 billion rubles in cash, about $47 million, when they raided Wagner headquarters in St. Petersburg. This was while Prigozhin was still marching towards Moscow. It seems that after the deal, he has come back to collect his money. Another thing to point out is that Prigozhin believes he's come out on top from the mutiny, despite his forced exile. Prigozhin did not initially set out to overthrow the government. Then, he clearly understood that Putin would not remove Shoigu under any circumstances. As a result, it was deemed that the basic goal of the march had been fulfilled. The plan was to keep the leadership of the Wagner PMC and its authority in the eyes of the Board of Commanders for a while, as well as to obtain guarantees of untouchability. His main goal was achieved, and his entourage still considers him to be their leader, the only one in the whole country who was able to bend Putin. And talking about Putin, there's been a surge in Putin's public appearances since the coup attempt. He has been working to repair his image as almighty powerful Tsar of Russia, but there's something odd about some of his public appearances. Here, watch it for yourself. This is Putin in Dagestan. Now, compare this Putin to the Putin who gave multiple speeches around the coup attempt. Do they seem like the same person? I mean, not to me. It seems like Putin is increasingly using body doubles. Quick side note on this topic, my team on the second channel actually interviewed the reporter who first broke the news about Putin using body doubles in 2015. After his report, he and his family were constantly harassed and threatened by Putin's trolls and the Wagner Group. The harassment got so bad that his wife's sister actually killed herself. It's truly a sad story, but this just pushes Kristaps to work harder in exposing Putin's lies to the world. If you want to listen to the whole podcast, I will link it in the cards and in the description. Coming back to Putin's body double, it makes sense that he's doing more public visits to strengthen his image. Also, him meeting with so many strangers is quite the opposite of his regular behavior, which further supports the theory that he's using body doubles. Infamous for his paranoid stance since the COVID-19 pandemic, anyone outside of Putin's close circle of yes-men have been forced to abide by strict 2-week quarantines in armed state hotels, while Putin has rarely been a leader to physically engage with ordinary Russians. Bizarre pictures have surfaced of the 71-year-old sitting isolated at a large marble table, feet away from his guests. Recent rumors suggest the dictator resides in underground bunkers, requires visitors to pass through a special tunnel of ultraviolet light, and is so paranoid of assassination attempts that his security detail follows him everywhere. Here's another funny video of Putin drawing art.
Что желаете, да, роспись, кошку, на ваше усмотрение, Леонид.
All while Putin is trying to strengthen his image, Russia's economy is weakening. Russia's deepening economic problems have resulted in a collapse of commodities earnings, drastic cuts in federal government spending, and rail freight yards being clogged with thousands of Chinese ship containers that are sitting empty for wants of goods to export. The Moscow Times reports that Russian government statistics are showing a dire economic situation. As of the 27th of May, the Ministry of Finance has spent 48% of the allocated budget, but only had collected 40% of forecast revenues. The deficit stands at 134% of the planned amount. The government has cut its spending for June to 44 billion rubles a day, about $498 million, half of the average for the previous 5 months. Federal tax collections have fallen by 19% compared to the same period in 2022. Russia's only saving grace at the beginning of the war, the oil revenues, are also taking a hit. Oil and gas revenues have halved, from 5.658 to 2.853 trillion rubles. That's about $64 billion down to $32.3 billion. Exports to Europe have collapsed, and oil companies are having to gift double-digit discounts to Indian and Chinese buyers. The government's expenses have increased by 26% to 13.23 trillion rubles, of which almost a third, 3.9 trillion rubles, is being spent on secret items of expenditure. Secret military spending is likely to account for as much as 3.1 trillion rubles of this. Russia's economic difficulties are particularly symbolized by the mountains of empty Chinese shipping containers piling up at railways across the country. This is because Russia imports far more from China than it exports. We've begun seeing the effects of these economic problems spill into the war zone already. Russian bloggers are sharing a photo of artillery shells received by a Russian unit. They say these specific shells were made in 1939, making them 84 years old today. I don't even know if these will still work today. They might end up hurting Russian soldiers who are using them instead of Ukrainians, but hey, I guess good news for Ukraine, right? Here's another video of Russian soldiers who have given up following Russian orders because they are not being properly supported. They claim that they didn't receive any ammo, food, or water. All the while, they are risking their lives for their country.
После ожесточительных боев, после всего, что мы увидели, вот остатки пацанов, что остались. Среди нас 2 200-х. Нас сегодня привезли с передовой вот в эти апартаменты. Все в интернете видели это видео, это место.
Здесь полковник ФСБ угрожал мобилизованным, которые отказались.
Полковник ФСБ угрожал мобилизованным. Ну мы шторм как бы. И сейчас мы здесь отдохнули ровно 3 часа после дороги с передка. Где? На передке, где мы были. Нам не поставлялась БК. Нам не поставлялись ни вода, ни продукты питания. Не вывозились 300-е. До сих пор там гниют 200-е. Их никто просто не забирает. отдаются ужасные приказы, которые в принципе даже не стоило бы выполнять. Вообще, мы вообще считаем, что нас просто обнуляют. Вот это лично вот мое мнение пацанов, что нас просто, нас вот 150 человек. Да, вот наш остаток из 150. 3 месяца мы служим, нам ни разу не заплатили зарплату. Сейчас к нам приехали и сказали: пацаны, надо ехать в приютное на передок, опять в мясорубку, где мы уже были.
И мы от этого не вернемся.
Суть этого обращения такова: мы, записав это обращение, разошлем это обращение своим родственникам, после чего мы отказываемся дальше идти выполнять боевые задачи по вот этим по ряду причин, которые мы обратились в обращении, и сдаемся в руки ВП. Пусть, если кто-то из нас, из этого остатка, фамилии мы позже перечислим, кто-то погибнет, они погибли не на передовых, просто обнулили. Кто-то может там, я не знаю за что, но мы вот они стоим, вот они, мы с передка, все ребята здесь. Если даже кто-то погибнет, он погибнет на передке, его просто застрелили свои. Все, всем доброго дня, слава России.
Russia's economic situation is getting so bad because of this war that they called a UN Security Council meeting to complain about weapons supplies to Ukraine. I'm not kidding. The same country that decided to launch an invasion against a peaceful neighbor is now complaining to the world to stop helping Ukraine against its invasion. You would expect this from like kindergarten-aged children, but no. This is coming from Russia. Yesterday, I finished the video talking about some poll results from Russia to show how Russians are feeling about this war. Today, let's look at some polls to see how this war is affecting Ukrainians. 78% of Ukrainians have relatives or friends who were wounded or died because of the Russian invasion into Ukraine. 64% of Ukrainians have at least one close relative or friend who was wounded. And 63% of Ukrainians have had at least one close relative or friend who died in the full-scale invasion. This is an incredible amount of individual and collective psychological trauma, and a collective grief experience that the whole country is going through. And this just shows how much pain Russia has inflicted on Ukraine. Alright, that's it for today, everybody. Please check out the Patreon link below if you'd like to support the videos, and be sure to hit that like button below. Thanks.